So I've been reviewing cable political shows, trying to be ready to talk marriage equality with anyone, anywhere, anytime. I've pulled together our opponents' favorite talking points, along with the best replies, and tossed in a few of my own. This is version 1. I'm sure it'll change. Here's their first big talking point. We're just defending traditional marriage.
That's what I'm here to do today, is protect traditional marriage.
Support traditional marriage.
Protect traditional marriage.
We all support traditional marriage. In fact, marriage equality means that we support opposite-sex marriage just as staunchly as we support same-sex marriage. It doesn't have to be defended or protected. No one's trying to take it away. There's only one side here trying to get rid of people's marriage rights, and it's not us. Point 2. Personally, I just think gay marriage is wrong.
In my family, I believe that a marriage should be between a man and a woman. No offense to anybody out there, but that's how I was raised, and that's how I think that it should be between a man and a woman. Thank you.
But you didn't answer the question. You didn't explain why you think your personal beliefs should be made into laws that everyone has to follow. My parents were conservative Catholics. They thought divorce was wrong, and my dad thought birth control was immoral. But they didn't make the huge leap to thinking that these things should be illegal for everyone.
I'm not talking about church doctrine. I'm talking about natural law, Chris, the law of human nature.
Natural law is usually just code for, this is what I'm used to. Decades ago, smart people thought that natural law indicated that the races shouldn't mingle. But the world's complex, and what seems natural to one generation leaves the next one thinking, how could they believe that? So don't talk about natural law. It doesn't really have a good track record where minorities are concerned. Point 3. Settle for civil unions. All the rights, but not the word marriage.
We can be fair to gays and give them all the rights that married people have without redefining the term.
What's wrong with a civil union?
That sounds a lot like, you can get on the bus, you just have to sit in the back. I know what it's like to be a gay teen in a small town with well-meaning parents telling me how awful homosexuals are. Those teens are still out there. They can't change their orientation, and thousands of them call suicide hotlines every year. And what would settling for civil unions tell them? It would say, no relationship you'll ever have will be good enough for marriage. Any relationship you have is going to be second-rate in the eyes of the government and in the eyes of society. And that's your fate. And that's just wrong. And it's not true. Those teens, they deserve better than that. However many rights we have, our most vocal opponents want us to have fewer. They opposed civil unions until marriage became a possibility, and then civil unions became their public fallback position. But if we said civil unions okay, they start to fight us on that. Compromise won't settle this issue. It'll just lead to a new, even more dehumanizing battle for us to fight. Point 4. You don't have the right to redefine marriage for everyone.
They don't have a right to decide to redefine marriage for the entire state of California or the entire country.
But you're fighting to pass laws that define, or in some states, redefine marriage for everyone, in a way that doesn't include everyone. I don't think your statement makes sense. When women were fighting for the vote, would you have said, but you don't have the right to redefine voter for everyone? That would have been an obvious distraction, and it's ridiculous, but it's what you're saying right now. Civil marriage involves a legal definition, not a religious one, and legal definitions evolve constantly. The laws around marriage have changed again and again, and it's no use pretending they haven't, unless you think we're still back in the days when women were the property of the father or the husband they belonged to. Point 5. Children need traditional families.
The research shows that children do best when raised by their own biological mother and father who are committed to one another in a lifelong marriage.
Those studies are about divorce and remarriage, not gay marriage. So your reasoning really comes down to, divorce is tough on kids, so let's ban same-sex marriage. Is it possible for you to make an argument without twisting your facts?
Marriage is the only institution we have that's about bringing together the two great halves of humanity, male and female, so that children can know and be known by, and love and be loved by their own mother and father.
The two halves of humanity. That'd be one heck of a big wedding. But however poetic that sounds, marriage has always been about two people coming together to build one family, one home, one shared life. That's what marriage has always been, and marriage equality does nothing to change that. Polls show again and again that people who know gays and lesbians are more likely to vote for marriage equality. So if there's such a gulf between gay and straight relationships, then you need to explain why straights who actually know us don't seem to think so. You like to talk about their own mother and father.
They love and be loved by their own mother and father. And love and be loved by their own mother and father. Their own mother and father.
My mom and dad adopted my brother before I was born. And if you ever tried to tell my mom that she was not his own mother, you would have had one furious, devout, traditional Catholic woman on your hands. Let me see if I can get this straight. An opposite-sex couple who doesn't have kids and can't have kids makes for a better marriage than a lesbian couple who does have a biological child, because marriage is all about procreating, and the straight couple could have a biological child if only they could have a biological child. And they're also better than a gay couple who has an adopted child, because marriage is about raising kids, and the straight couple could raise their own biological child if only they could have a biological child. Which makes me wonder how you would rank a straight couple with an adopted child against a lesbian couple with a biological child, although now I'm kind of feeling weird because I'm asking you to rank families you haven't even met yet, although you do seem perfectly happy to go on national television again and again and do exactly that. Point 6. Gays are calling us bigots.
There are two ideas at war in the marriage debate. The first is the gay marriage idea. You've heard it over and over again. It goes something like this. There is no difference between same-sex and opposite-sex couples, and anyone who thinks otherwise is a bigot.
No, Maggie, we see a difference between the leaders of our opposition and the everyday Americans who are counting on them for the truth and who aren't getting it. I won't call you a bigot unless you think one group is inherently better than another and deserves unique treatment because they're special.
The other idea is that there's something special about unions of husbands and wives that justifies their unique treatment in law and culture and society.
I hear you saying that our relationship simply can't be as special as yours. I know you hate being called a bigot, and I'm not calling you one right now, but it's hard to duck that label when you keep saying that our lives are inherently inferior to yours. If you said the marriages of Christians were better than the marriages of Jews, you'd be called a bigot. And that's exactly what you're saying about gays and lesbians. When you denigrate an entire category of people, you open yourself up to that charge when you set up different classes of human beings. We've had that type of thinking before in our country, and we've seen the harm it can do. Point 7. It's a slippery slope to bestiality, pedophilia, and polygamy.
Why can't one man marry 3 women?
But what about Americans who want to marry multiple partners? You want to marry a turtle, you can.
What about bestiality? And ultimately, what about child molestation and pedophilia?
Do you really not see a fundamental difference between an adult and a child? Between a human and a dog? Really? No one in our society has the right to marry a child, or a dog, or a group of people. I'm asking for the right to marry a man, and half of our society already has that right. You can't say that about any of your scare tactic scenarios, and that's what makes them fundamentally different. Arguments like this make it sound as if tradition is the only reason we don't let people marry kids and dogs. But we don't let people marry kids to protect them from exploitation. Also, young kids don't have the intellectual capacity to understand marriage. Older kids don't have the emotional maturity to make that kind of commitment. As for animals, Lord, after what I've said about kids, why do people like Bill Riley still talk about people marrying goats? A goat would be more likely to eat a marriage license than to sign one. We've seen the abuse, the exploitation, the sexual violence that comes with polygamy. We haven't seen that in our national and international experience with same-sex marriage, which sets up a great big roadblock on this alleged slippery slope. Suppose we had marriages of 10 people, or 100, or 100,000. Could current laws accommodate that? Could they handle things like financial liability and child custody and social security benefits? No. We would have to write entirely new laws to deal with this entirely new institution. And that's not true of same-sex marriage. In California, when it became legal, all they had to do was start issuing licenses to same-sex couples. And that just goes to show how different same-sex marriage is from polygamy. Thanks for watching. I took material from many people to compile this, so here's a list of thank yous. You can find links to the original clips at my website, wakingupnow.com. I put up a text file there if you want to download this material. You can also leave suggestions, requests, and anticipated rebuttals in the comments section for this post. Keep in mind that if you decide to use anything here, you'd vary the tone and attitude based on the conversation, and remember that sometimes the real audience isn't the person you're talking to, but other people who might be listening. Finally, I had to leave a bunch of stuff out, so watch for part 2.